Thank you. Yes. Eric Bogosian. My grandmother said, "Don't be like Mannix. Keep your last name." I'm here today to honor and remember two great-grandfathers who died in the labor battalions in the Ottoman Empire in 1915. Today is a very special day, not just as a day of remembrance, but I believe that today marks the day that the genocide is recognized and we move on. We don't need to wait to be recognized any longer. It was clear this week in the news that the time has come. There are a few holdouts. We don't have to worry about them. We can move on and embrace fully who we are as a people, as an amazing, wonderful, cultural and historical entity known as the Armenians, and let's celebrate it and move out of darkness into the light of what we are. To the criminals who attempted to eradicate the Armenian people, we can say today, you failed. I'm going to read to you a little bit from my book, which just came out this week, about Operation Nemesis, which is actually not a novel. I'm sorry to correct you. It is a nonfiction book about the brave Armenians who avenged the genocide, attempted to avenge it, by assassinating a number of the major Ottoman leaders who put in motion the genocide in 1915, 1916. The story is here in this book. Many of you are familiar with the name Soghomon Tehlirian, who assassinated Talat Pasha. But you may not be as familiar with other names: Misak Torlakian, Arshavir Sharadian, Shahan Natali, Armin Garo. These were the men of Operation Nemesis, and it was a remarkable thing that they did in 1921, 1922. So I'm going to read to you now from the book a little bit. When I was a little kid, there was nothing I loved better than hanging out at my grandparents' house. In her sunny kitchen, my grandma Lucy would fashion honey-drenched Armenian pastries, while out in the backyard, Grandpa Megardich roasted lamb shish kebab under the apple trees. Pretty idyllic sounding, isn't it? It was great. Watertown, Mass. After dessert, Grandpa might knock back a tiny glass of arak and tell me stories. I was held wrapped by the horrific narratives he dredged up from his faraway past. In his sweetly accented English, Megardich would describe burning churches and sadistic horsemen. These tragic and bloody stories would horrify me and yet hold me wrapped as a young boy. I was no more than 4 years old when I heard those stories of horror. That's how I begin the book. I'm going to read from the end of the book now, where I return to my grandfather. My grandfather told me stories from his life. It was his gift to me. Memory lies at the center of the Nemesis story. It is the engine of an intense bloodlust. We remember, but we remember differently. Our respective narratives lead to different actions. Thus, the conundrum of history. Were you there? Did you actually see it? Who told you about it? How can you be sure? And so memory and retribution are linked. But why? Why is it so important to remember what happened? All people who live will die someday, and in a few generations, most of us will be forgotten altogether. So why does it make any difference whether the details of our particular deaths are remembered, violent or not? Perhaps the answer lies in the very fact that we do all die, that no one cheats death. We come into this world with nothing, and we leave with nothing. We all know, either implicitly or explicitly, that all we really have is our place in the memories of others. We exist to the degree that we know and remember one another, even the most isolated among us. We share a collective understanding that we are all part of a greater whole. Perhaps we will not be remembered as individuals, but we, the living, move through life surrounded by what the dead have left for us. The dead live on in the pages of thousands of books, in the bricks of countless buildings, in the flickering shadows of old movies, in virtually everything we see and touch, including our own children. For this reason, we must respect the dead. In this contract of respect we have with those who have gone before us, that demands we acknowledge how they died, and if they died violently, to seek redress. The question that is almost impossible to answer is, what should we do if those who committed the original crime go unpunished? What if those who follow in the footsteps of those who committed the original crime insist on hiding the truth? What then? In the end, is there such a thing as justice? The year 2015 marks 100 years since Talat Pasha and the CUP ruled over the last days of the Ottoman Empire. 100 years ago, millions of Armenians lived in Asia Minor. Today, fewer than 90,000 people living in Turkey call themselves Armenian. In many ways, the destruction of the Christians in the Ottoman Empire began a trend. Throughout the Middle East, fewer and fewer Christians make their home where Islam is the majority religion. Year by year, Turkey plays a greater role as a major representative of the United States in the Middle East. The Turkish government has more than enough incentive to remain silent about the genocide of 100 years ago. Whether Turkey wants to be part of the European Union or not, it binds itself ever more tightly to the West with each passing year. What began as a military relationship has become a deeply economic one, and that in turn has affected civic life in Turkey. The institutions of the Republic, particularly its university system and judiciary, as well as its social life, can no longer exist in concert with manufactured history. The truth is easily accessible, and Turkish scholars and writers, young people using social media, anyone watching television must in time be exposed to it, despite the law forbidding discussion of the genocide. Some brave souls are writing about it and investigating it. The tide of truth is rising. Whether we are Christian, Jewish, or Muslim, we are all children of God. We are all children of our grandparents and our great-grandparents. May they rest in peace as we honor and remember them. Thank you.